So that was a pretty clean kill, as you can see, and I've made a build similar to this before, but this time I switched the weapons around. So last time I was running Sure Shot, now it's Double Barrel. Before I was running Widowmaker, now it's Sporebloom. And these are both weapons with a very small ideal range, but it actually works with Hunter's trait to give an extra 6 meters. And I found most bosses actually to be well within that range. And I just made this because I found another weapon besides like Sure Shot in the secondary that would make this really good. And it's really hard to say which one is like definitively better, but I was finding Double Barrel was doing a little bit more for me, and I just really enjoy this 2-shot shotgun. So I made another video on a similar-ish build to something I've done before, but I thought there were enough differences. And as always, if you enjoy this type of video and you want to see more, please do like and subscribe. Now I'll go into a bit of a further breakdown. So for our weapons, mods, and mutators, you can put whatever you want in the melee weapon, not super important. And then the star of the show is Sporebloom. This thing hits the hardest out of any gun that you can get for one shot. Put on Deadly Calm for its continuous aiming, increasing range damage, and it also increases range crit chance by 10%. And these are both great effects, as our crit chance in this build is nearing 100%. Depending on the weapon, it's a little bit different. Our secondary, as I mentioned before, is Double Barrel, and I actually prefer this to Sure Shot just because you get a few more shots, you get to spam them, and I love the audio effect of this handgun. Put on Corrosive Rounds for the crit chance as well as the corrode debuff, and then Bullet Weaver, because you use the mod at the beginning of the fight, and now it increases your fire rate, so your shots go off that little bit quicker. And as you can see in this footage that I'm just playing in the background, I'm just comparing what it looks like with Sure Shot versus what it looks like with Double Barrel, and I put Ghost Shell on Sure Shot. Please do be careful. Even though one had a higher number than the other in this one round of testing, this is by no means extensive, and obviously there's a lot of RNG depending on how many crits you hit each time. As you can see, they're basically neck and neck, but so it's pretty much preference, but I personally prefer running Double Barrel. For our archetypes and our skills, Hunter in the primary slot, so we can get its Prime perk, which will increase the duration of the Hunter skill that we choose, which is obviously going to be Hunter's Focus. This is really great for the recoil control and the weapon spread because we are using shotguns, not to mention the incredible boosts to damage that Hunter's Focus gives you. And then in the secondary archetype, we're going to be running Gunslinger, obviously because we want the sidewinder skill, which just gives you such a large window of just extraordinary burst damage. For our amulet and rings, as I mentioned in the beginning, Energy Diverter is our amulet, which is a different pick than normal. Normally you'd want to be running something like Abrasive Whetstone or Butcher's Fetish for crit chance and crit damage. However, you cannot bleed the Astropath, so for this boss only, Energy Diverter is going to do more for you than those other two options. And it still gives 10% crit chance, 15% all damage dealt when a shield is active, which works great with the relic that I chose. For other bosses though, you might want to swap the amulet around. For our first ring, Zanya's Malice, everything is ideally going to be a weak spot on this specific boss fight, so this is one of the greatest damage amulets you can get. Akari's Warband, as always, a staple in pretty much any crit build. Perfect dodging for the crit chance and the crit damage, 15% of each is just extraordinary. Ring of Flawed Beauty, because we should ideally be hitting weak spots only. Let's not talk about my aim, but yeah, this is an incredible ring for when you're hitting weak spots. And then Probability Cord, because as I mentioned, our crit chance is nearly 100%. This is basically just a 30% multiplicative increase to our damage. Now for our relic, we're going to be using the Shielded Heart. As I mentioned earlier, our amulet is going to do great things for us if we have a shield up. So we need to get a shield up, and a Shielded Heart is the great way to get that. And then for our fragments, we're going to run 10% crit chance because it's extraordinary for range damage, 20% ranged crit damage because once again this is like the best in slot you can get for damage, and 15% weak spot damage, which is once again a extremely great choice. And as always, think of my builds more as guidelines rather than like hard and fast rules. and that goes doubly so for traits. So ammo reserves comes with the gunslinger, hunter comes with long shot. I put fortify points to make me tanky, but then I realized I was going to kill him and he wasn't going to be able to hit me, so it didn't matter. Potency for consumable duration, which is just nice to make our buff last a little bit longer. Vigor for health, but once again he didn't end up being able to hit me. Swiftness for speed, didn't really matter. Handling is probably the only important one I would say in this build, just to get that extra spread and recoil reduction by 40%, and then I also put in footwork and glutton. For our concoction, I picked Tranquility Front just for extra gun recoil spread reduction. I use a rocket fuel just for an increased fire rate, which gives me minor benefits at best on Double Barrel, and then I throw one Brightstone grenade before the fight just to self-proc Akari's Warband. So now, as normal, I'm just gonna go through a bit of a quick fight breakdown and walk you through what's going through my mind and the thought process and everything. So at the beginning, I want a buffing sequence to get everything up as fast as we can. So we're gonna do a rocket fuel to increase our fire rate. We're gonna do our hunter skill because we're gonna constantly be refreshing that thing's duration. It's gonna last the whole fight. Then we're gonna dodge our own grenade to proc Akari's Warband. Use our heart to get our shield and get our amulet online, as well as Gunslinger's 10-second damage perk. And then lastly, pop our mod before walking through the fog gate. And then right when we get through the fog gate, we're going to instantly aim at the boss and use sidewinder. And from there, it's just pretty simple. You just keep swapping between your weapons and shooting, and if your aim's better than mine, you pull this off a whole lot quicker. Unfortunately, I missed a fair few shots, but it is what it is, and honestly, I'm still pretty happy with the overall result. I'm not going for the ultimate fastest fight ever. I'm just trying to show off builds that I come up with and fun and unique ways to play through this game. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.